It started on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, the kind where the light hits just right, soft and golden through the blinds. The house was silent except for the ticking of the clock and the occasional creak of the floorboards. I was at the dining table, coffee in hand, settling in to pay the bills like I always did. Just me, my laptop, and a to-do list that never ended. Nothing about that moment felt unusual, until I saw the numbers. At first, I didn't think much of it, just a few withdrawals, small but consistent. Maybe something Eric had set up and forgotten to mention. But as I kept scrolling, something started to tighten in my chest. The amounts were all the same, the dates perfectly spaced, and the money was always going to the same account. I clicked into the details, feeling that first sting of confusion twist into something colder. And then I saw her name, Isadora, that name. I just sat there staring at it, like maybe if I blinked enough times it would change, but it didn't. I don't know any Isadora. Eric never mentioned her. She wasn't some vendor or a mutual friend or part of any family. She was a stranger, linked directly to our money, and now, lodged inside my mind like a thorn. I didn't say anything out loud, not yet. I needed to see how far it went. I opened our phone records next, something I'd never done before, never felt the need to. But now, I needed answers, even if they came in pieces. His call history was long, but there it was, her number. Repeated. Consistent. Late-night calls when I thought he was working late, midday ones he swore were with clients. Each one another crack in the story I thought I knew. I felt my hands getting colder as I scrolled. Then I checked the messages. Not mine. His. I knew his passcode. He'd given it to me months ago without hesitation. That trust used to mean something. I searched for her name, my stomach already tight. No texts with Isadora, but I found a contact saved as something ridiculous. Leo's dry cleaning. And under it, messages. Too familiar. Too soft. One even said, "Can't wait to see you again, love." My throat went dry. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I just sat there, absorbing it, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. I went to his social media next, scrolling through posts that suddenly felt fake. A dinner date we took last month. He had smiled so big. My hand was in his. But now I saw it differently. That wasn't joy. That was performance. And I wasn't the audience he was trying to impress. I spent the rest of the day moving through the house like a shadow. Folding laundry I didn't care about. Stirring a pot on the stove I never tasted. I smiled when he walked in, kissed his cheek like nothing was wrong. And all the while, the truth pulsed behind my eyes like a quiet storm. I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. I needed to see how deep this went, how far he thought he could take it without me noticing. That night, while he slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, counting the seconds between his breaths. There was something cruel about how peaceful he looked, while my mind ran laps around everything we had built. I thought of the vacations, the shared bank goals, the birthday surprises. I thought of the sacrifices I made for him, quiet ones, daily ones. All the ways I dimmed my light to keep us balanced. And now this? No, I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't sob on the kitchen floor or tear through drawers like some dramatic movie scene. That's not who I am. I would gather information quietly. I would watch, wait, and measure every step. Because if he thought he could move in the shadows, he clearly forgot who he married. I don't shout to be heard. I strike when silence speaks loudest. And something inside me had already started planning. I waited 3 more days, long enough to be sure, long enough to test if he'd come clean on his own. He didn't. So one evening after dinner, nothing special, just leftover pasta, I sat across from him at the table, my hands folded like I was about to say grace. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just asked the question, "Who is Isadora?" He barely flinched, just leaned back in his chair, fork still in his hand, like I'd asked if the laundry was done. Then he said it, flat, unapologetic. She's my new woman. I didn't want to tell you like this, but you asked. That's it. No hesitation, no guilt, no attempt to soften the blow. It wasn't just betrayal, it was dismissal, like I was being crossed off a list. I remember blinking slowly, letting the words settle into my bones. My heart didn't race. I didn't feel fire in my chest. What I felt was colder, sharper, a quiet disintegration of everything I thought we had. And still, I didn't react. I nodded, almost politely. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, rinsed my plate, and then with my purse on my shoulder, I left. Just like that. No goodbye, no scene. But I wasn't leaving empty. I didn't drive far, just a few blocks down to a friend's place, someone who owed me nothing but quiet. I needed air, space, the kind that didn't carry the weight of his voice or the echo of that sentence. She's my new woman. Like I was the old model, outdated, replaceable. I sat in my car a long time before going inside, just gripping the wheel, jaw clenched, heart frozen. I wasn't heartbroken, I was insulted. This wasn't just infidelity, it was erasure. Years of partnership, shared goals, and silent sacrifices reduced to a shrug. And the worst part? He didn't even try to lie, didn't try to protect me, or even himself. That kind of honesty isn't brave, it's cruel. It meant he didn't fear losing me. And that was the crack that split everything wide open. You don't beg to keep what you think you already own. So no, I didn't cry. Not then. I poured a glass of wine, took off my shoes, and stared out the window of someone else's guest room like it belonged to me. And in that moment, something shifted. There was pain, yes. But behind it, a current of something darker, quieter, intentional. I knew right then I wasn't going to break. I was going to build, but not a wall, a strategy. The next morning, I went home early. Not to talk. Not to give him a second chance. I just needed to see the place through new eyes. Our photos were still on the walls, his shoes still by the door. It was strange how normal everything looked, knowing now how much of it was a lie. I walked through each room like I was touring someone else's life, calm but not detached, present, focused. He wasn't there, which was better. I didn't want to hear his voice, not until I was ready for him to hear mine differently. I gathered what I needed: documents, flash drives, passwords I'd memorized but never thought I'd use. Little things that suddenly held power. When I left, I didn't look back. He thought I was walking away defeated, but I knew something he didn't. I wasn't leaving the battlefield, I was choosing the ground. That day, something settled deep inside me. Not revenge, not yet, but the shape of it. The idea that silence could be sharper than any scream, and that strategy would serve me better than emotion. I wasn't going to burn down his life in a fit of rage. I'd do it methodically, cleanly, like a ledger balancing itself. After all, if he saw me as an expense, I would show him what it means when a woman decides she's done being a line item. The lawyer's office was colder than I expected, not in temperature, just in tone. Neutral walls, quiet voices, everything designed to keep emotions outside. I sat across from a woman named Marta. Sharp eyes, no nonsense. I told her what I knew, and she barely blinked. "You've got rights," she said, tapping a pen against her notepad. "And if you move smart, you'll keep more than your dignity." That was all I needed to hear. We went over the account, what was left, what I could touch before freezing anything. I made my moves carefully. Nothing too obvious. A transfer here, a quiet withdrawal there. Enough to give me a cushion, but not enough to raise a flag. He wouldn't even notice. Not yet. I wasn't stealing from him. I was reclaiming what he spent without asking. Every dollar was a broken promise with interest. But I wasn't done. Not even close. While he played house with Isadora, I went digging. I had access to files most wives don't, because I helped build his business from the ground up. Late nights organizing receipts, managing his calendar, proofreading emails he couldn't be bothered to read. I had his passwords, his backup drives, and in that mess of spreadsheets and folders, I started finding things he never thought I'd understand. There were discrepancies in the books, sloppy ones, income not reported, cash payments rerouted through fake vendors, invoices for work that never happened. He always bragged about being too clever for audits. Turns out, clever looks a lot like careless when someone's actually paying attention. I printed every irregularity, flagged every questionable entry. What used to be trust was now evidence, and I was just getting started. I created a folder, a real one, black, leather-bound, labeled Confidential, in clean gold letters. Inside it, page after page of quiet destruction. I wasn't sure yet if I'd send it to the authorities or just keep it as leverage. Either way, it gave me something he could never take back: power. For every lie he funded with our joint account, I now had a truth that could gut him, piece by piece. But this wasn't just about money or paperwork. I wanted him to feel what I had felt: blindsided, small, expendable. So I didn't just dig through his records. I watched his life, his company, his habits. I learned where his deals were fragile, who his biggest clients were, what they cared about most. And I smiled, just a little, knowing I wouldn't need to lift a finger to destroy him. I'd just need to whisper. I kept everything hidden, in a locked drawer, under my old scarves, behind a framed photo he never looked at. He had no idea. Every morning he kissed my cheek before leaving, still convinced I was licking my wounds in silence. But I wasn't wounded anymore. I was wide awake. I had transformed that pain into precision. While he was building a new life, I was building a countdown. I started wearing my calm-like armor, smiling when he walked into the room, nodding when he lied to my face. I gave him no reason to suspect a shift. That was the beauty of it. He thought I was broken. And nothing makes a man more careless than assuming he's already won. He didn't see the glances I stole toward his files, or the quiet clicks of copied documents late at night. He thought I was fading. I was sharpening. And while he planned his weekends with her, I rehearsed the next phase in my mind like a script. The silence would be the first blow, the vanishing the second. But the third? That one would land hardest. I didn't want him to suffer quickly. I wanted it slow, in waves. And when he finally noticed the distance, the silence, the shift, I wouldn't be there to explain it. I'd already be somewhere else, pulling the first thread. The first thing I did was vanish. Not physically, at least not at first. I went quiet. No texts, no calls, no "where are you" notes left on the kitchen counter. I blocked him on everything. It wasn't dramatic. It was clean, surgical. I became air in his world, once essential, now invisible. And when he finally noticed, it was already too late. I moved out while he was at work, took only what was mine and nothing that might tip him off too soon. Left behind the rings, the framed wedding photo, the drawer full of shared dreams. I didn't slam a door. I didn't even leave a note. He didn't deserve closure. He deserved confusion, the kind that rots a man from the inside out when no explanation comes. Let him search for signs. Let him feel the silence I once lived with. But I wasn't hiding. Not really. I was watching, listening, calculating every step, and when the time felt right, I began sending little sparks into his world. A message here, a whisper there. Anonymous, of course. Just enough to unsettle, just enough to make his pulse spike. I didn't even have to name him in the messages. The truth has a way of recognizing itself. I started with his business contacts, soft targets, executives, investors, board members, people who didn't like surprises. I sent them carefully worded emails from untraceable accounts. Nothing explicit, just suggestions. Have you reviewed the integrity of Eric's last quarterly report? Or, you might want to revisit your partnership agreement before finalizing? Just questions. But the kind that linger like smoke. Then came the social media posts, subtle, elegant, designed for curiosity, not pity. I posted a photo of a bill stamped paid with the caption, "Loyalty has a price. I just finished collecting." People read into things when they know there's more to the story. Another time I wrote, When the man you trusted funds another woman's life with your silence, send them both the invoice. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't need to. And just like that, the ground beneath him began to shift. Clients pulled back, contracts went cold, rumors spread faster than facts ever could. He tried calling me, once, then again, then over 100 times in 2 days. I watched his name flash across the screen while sipping coffee like I was watching the weather report. He was unraveling. But this was just the beginning of his storm. I never once responded. Not to the calls, not to the emails, not to the voicemails that grew more desperate by the hour. He went from confident to confused to frantic. His voice cracked in message number 17. By message 32, he was begging. By 60, he was angry, demanding answers, blaming stress, blaming me. And all I did was listen in silence, holding the phone like it was a souvenir from another life. I imagined him pacing in that house, opening drawers, checking closets, wondering how I slipped away so completely. Let him feel the absence. Let him sit in the silence I once filled with care, conversation, and comfort. He used to call me predictable, routine. I wore that like shame once. But now, it's what made me invisible enough to destroy him from the shadows. He never saw me coming because he stopped looking. Each unanswered ring was another thread coming loose in his world. And I wasn't just watching, I was directing the whole thing. The fall, the fear, the silence, all of it. And the best part? He still thought there was a way back, that if he just said the right thing, made the right plea, I might return. But I wasn't waiting for a confession. I was waiting for the last call, the one where he finally understood. The 127th call came at 2:14 a.m. I let it ring. I let it go to voicemail. But something in me knew. It was time. Not to forgive. Not to explain. Just to close the door he still thought was open. So I picked up on the next ring. I didn't say anything right away. Just listened to the silence on his end stretch out, full of all the things he'd never said when it mattered. When he finally spoke, his voice was small. Not the man I married, not the man who stood tall while pulling me apart piece by piece. Please, he said, can we talk? I made a mistake. I know that now. His words stumbled, fragile and wet with desperation. But I felt nothing. Not hate, not warmth, just distance. Like I was listening to someone else's tragedy, not my own. I waited until he ran out of words, until the silence between us became heavier than the apology he couldn't quite form. Then finally, I spoke, calm, clear. You didn't lose me, I said. You spent me. He didn't respond. I don't think he could. I hung up before he found the breath to try. And with that, whatever we once were ended, not with a bang, but with a clean, steady click. I didn't cry after the call. I didn't replay it. I didn't wonder what he was doing in the silence that followed. I just sat on the edge of the bed, the city lights painting soft lines across the floor, and breathed in peace for the first time in months. Not relief, not triumph, just stillness. Like I'd finally stepped out of a room that had been slowly closing in on me. In the days that followed, I noticed how light my body felt, how I no longer flinched at the sound of my phone, how I stopped rehearsing arguments in the shower. People talk about heartbreak like it's loud, messy, dramatic. But this was quieter. It was freedom in the form of emptiness, a beautiful, necessary void. He didn't break me. He exposed what was already cracked, and I sealed it myself. I focused on building something new, not out of spite, but out of necessity. I launched the business I once only daydreamed about, poured myself into work that lit me up from the inside. No longer someone's wife, no longer someone's backup plan. I was my own investment now, my own return. And every time I saw his name in my missed calls list, I smiled, because the woman he once dismissed now owned the silence he drowned in. Months passed. I stopped counting. My name changed in the registry, on the mailbox, on every file that used to bind me to him. What didn't change was the silence. I kept that. Not out of pettiness, but because some men don't deserve a sequel. I heard whispers of him through friends of friends, the deals he lost, the partners who walked, the reputation that rotted, slowly, in the absence of trust. And me? I was thriving. Not in a loud, look-at-me way, but deeply, quietly. I had my own place, filled with plants I kept alive and mornings that began on my terms. I no longer lived in reaction. I lived in intention. Each decision I made now came from a place he never touched, my own clarity. And there was joy in that. Peace, not because I'd won, but because I'd let go of someone who never valued the cost. The final message I ever left him wasn't a message at all. It was a life well lived, unseen by him, untouched by his reach. I didn't need to confront him again. He had already heard the loudest sentence I would ever say. You didn't lose me. You spent me. And in the end, he was left with exactly what he gave. An empty account. A life with no return.